guys. Can you hear me? You can. Just a bit of background on me. Founded Horizon 5 years ago. We've grown over tenfold in the last 5 years with a team of 62 people. We've an opportunity now to take that onto a €10 million business by really the next year and become the fourth largest supplier of engineering solutions to the pharmaceutical industry nationally and probably with a global base. So we have a lot of challenges up in front of us. 62 people, that probably grow by the end of the year to about 100 to 110. If we do the mergers that we're supposed to do, that'll put us into the mid hundreds. So I often get asked, do you sleep well at night? We've every problem a small business can have when it wants to grow. We have a significant ambition, and therefore, I know there was a speaker on here earlier on that showed the demon sitting on the shoulders. I've every demon, and as the boys here know, after I wake up after a few pints for the next couple of days, I've added a few more demons on top of it. So, just with regards to how I personally deal with it, and I'm not going to talk about the company, but how I personally deal with it is I always use touch points and calibrations. I use EO a lot. I was just saying today I turned off my phone at 7 o'clock. It'll go back on at 1 o'clock, and EO for me has been quite an experience to be able to calibrate myself. You come into the room, you sit around, and you've got a big problem. Next thing you get an update, and across the table someone sitting there has 10 times the problem you go, geez, fuck, I'm not that problem area. And you can take that to extremes. So about 7 years ago, 2 years before I started the business, I just thought of this. I was supposed to be in Germany, and I got a call from Orla. I got clever Orla call. Said, look, I'm not in Germany. Actually, I stayed at home. Too many things going on with the business. I wanted to be here in Dublin. I was meeting both lawyers, accountants, etc. Tried to move that on, and I sent the team instead to go to Akima in Frankfurt. But she said, will you talk? So I said, sure, look, I suppose I will. And so yesterday at about 8 o'clock, I sent this on. I had no opportunity really to sit down and do a big presentation and do writing, so I said I'd just bring you through some pictures of something I did before, which is quite an easy way out, isn't it? But just to give you a bit of background, I come from rural Ireland, the most rural you can be, the west of Ireland. I grew up in a house. We had chickens, ducks, horses, cattle. The fox used to come in, we'd be watching for the fox. I grew up in what was rural Ireland, 1970s, early Ireland. 1979, 1980, my dad was a Garda. We moved off, and then we moved off the farm. We're still farmers today. He's still farming away. But doing that, etc., we have a very big community base. And about 8 years ago, a friend of mine from Donegal said, all we're doing is working all the time. We don't do anything. We need to do so. Let's do a project. So he goes, I'd like to do something. So we looked around and looked at some charities, and we looked and we found Concern, and we looked. They had a Nepalese project, and they came and we started talking to them and said, can you raise some money? So we did, and we raised just shy of about 35,000, myself and this guy. And the way we did that was we took that's where I'm from. I'm going to move around here if that's all right. I'm from here, small little place called Kilconnelly. I'm originally from there. We immigrated from Mayo. So I immigrated to Galway, about 7 miles down the road. And myself and a number of my mates, I came in, as you can see, to Pat. The one thing I didn't have on Pat's list was I could do really better on the whole looking after myself part. But this was one of the projects for me. So I said in the pub, I'm going to cycle around the whole of Connemara. And everyone looked and went, yeah, sound, we'll see you when you do that. Then we did. So we set off. We decided we'd do it in October. And of course I got flaking money from fundraising because no one thought I'd fucking do it. And basically, but I did do it because I generally do what I say I do. On the 31st of October 2008, one of the worst storms hit Ireland and the west coast. They were advising people not to go out, not to drive. And we decided we'd go on our cycle, fuck it anyways, we'd go. At that stage I had 30 grand raised. And we raised it, and that was me in the pub after it. As you can see, a small bit thinner than it was then, but that's what cycling does. So we hit off. gave the money to Nepal, I gave the money to Concern. They said, right, we want to now bring you around there, and there was 2 or 3 other people in Ireland doing it. These things are common, lots of people do these, but this was very core to me and how I calibrate me. Then we went to Nepal, and to be honest with you, I hadn't fucking clue where Nepal was. I knew it was somewhere around India. And so we flew from Heathrow, and you had to wear your hiking boots, right? So I arrived on the big pair of boots onto the 747, and the stink of sweat and smell when we had to go through the what do you call those things, the scanners. But we got there, and we got off the plane, and that's actually where Nepal is, just above India, just stuck between China and India. It's an ancient kingdom. You weren't allowed in there about 100 years ago. It was basically the British Empire found it, but I think a couple of the guys that found it were subsequently hanged and chopped up or whatever they did back in the day. We got out of Kathmandu airport, and I don't know if any of you have ever been to Nepal, but it's a third world country. And my friend has this thing. He worked in Egypt and Africa for a long time. He goes, the more underdeveloped the countries are, the more jobs they make up. So he goes, watch how this one. He says they'll have a job for fucking everything, right? So he arrived in the thing, and the passport stamping guy was there. So there was a guy to take your passport, and he looked at you. He handed it to the guy who wrote something on a piece of paper, who handed it to the guy who gave the guy a stamp, who then went stamped. And he goes, 4 lads doing that, if you could leave that one out. We got out in the bus, and then this was the bus, right? And now as a Westerner, I'm used to roughing it. But this yoke right here, that's not making up. They all sit on top of the bus, and they don't sit on top of the bus on motorways like we sit on. There's on the side of the bus, 2 buses can be coming down, and there's no difference between the 2 pillars there. The buses can't pass each other out, and there's probably a kilometre of a drop the other side, and these guys are just hanging on. And we spent 2 days driving to get to where we wanted to go. So where we wanted to go was we had to go into the Everest region, and in the Everest region, where is Kathmandu? There's Kathmandu, right? So it was about 2 days of really dangerous driving to get to a place where we were going to walk for a week. So we got everything off the bus, and we walked into, this was the old road to Lukla, it's called. This is how Hillary and Tenzing at the time, this is the way they would have went. People fly in now, but this is if you take the long journey, this is the way. So it's the old road, it's the old way to get in. It wasn't opened up for many years because of the communists. Where's Oregon? And so it wasn't opened up because of the communists. They only recently opened it up. So everywhere we went, we were the first Westerners, right? And all we went was, you go across stuff like this, stuff that you never seen before in your life. I mean, and you're literally over a gorge that's way down. We stay every night, we were above the clouds. So we were at about 2,500 feet. Above 3,500 meters. Above that, you start running out of oxygen, etc. And it's a dangerous place to live, so you try not to be up there for too long. But the Nepalese live around 2,500 meters up. Right. So what we did was, we went up. The original goal was to climb a mountain called Pikey Peak. It's not really the original goal. The original goal was that was part of it. See where the money was being spent and how it was being spent. We went up. Pikey Peak is a lesser known peak. The one problem with this picture is it's incredibly crap. And the reason is because it's very poor oxygen, and I had one of those disposable cameras. There's no snow, so everyone goes, no, sure it wasn't so high, so. The snow retreats up to 7,000 to 8,000 meters in the Himalayas. This is at 5,500 meters. It took us about a week and a half to get there, and then we climbed, it took us 3 days of ascending and dropping back and ascending again, and then finally ascending. So on the 16th of November, 2008, I raised the Mayo flag high over the Himalayas. You can't see it, which is an awful pity, but actually Everest is just behind me. And I promise, I swear. In that, you're checking, but you have to be friendly with the people you're with, because it's tough in a sense. It's a tight for time. You live, it's like to turn into your partner. So I promised nudism, and I'm going to deliver. There's my good friend Paul in the tent. You're in the tent. There's no shower facilities for 3 weeks. The only way is that's your shower, the wipe that you got. And that is one of my most favorite pictures of all time. Still a good friend. The projects we went to, the 30,000 that was raised by myself and Paul, along with maybe another 30, went to deliver water supplies to villages. These people have nothing. They do what probably, where I grew up in the 1970s, 100 years before that, they walked 10 miles to the well and back. To get medicine supplies or anything like that, they walk hours. We came across a lady that cut her hand. She could have been infected and we couldn't look after her. Her nearest doctor that she could have gone to was, I think, an 8-mile trek, which would take her half a day. She could have died along the way, and no one will ever know whatever happened to her. We also, some of the money went to building schools and delivering chairs, tables, the whole lot that they don't have. Well, because of the wells, it's all combined. They send the children for the 5 to 6 mile walks, and they bring back the water. The kids, I have 3 kids myself, they're some of the most beautiful people you've ever met in your life. We stayed in their houses, they looked after us, they're absolutely fantastic. Probably the nicest people I've ever met in my life. They had nothing but gave everything. I guess everything is carried. That was just that. Today, this is why it's a conflicting presentation. I got a call and I said, sure, I'll do it. And then, of course, I remember she didn't have an earthquake or something. And I started looking it up last night. The place is destroyed over there. Actually, where we were, it's quite emotional because I didn't realise, and I was looking at it last night, and I didn't put the pictures that I saw last night on this presentation because I said it wasn't right. Buildings with people, not many people left, fathers holding their children up, and remember, they don't have medicines, so if they get hit or infection, they're dead. That's the region we were in. It's probably been the worst hit region. It's the place where concern is. They've gone back there. They did pull out of there when the recession came, and they moved off to countries that needed it more. So effectively, these are the little babbas that now need help. It certainly motivated me to think of something. It was only last night I said, Jesus Christ, with a company where we have it, every euro is a prisoner at the moment, and every euro is working. If I had $1 million, I'd throw it out to them. But of course that's the natural reaction, maybe an entrepreneurial reaction, maybe an accountant's reaction. After some advice, there's probably some scheme that I could do. But that's where it's at right now. So that country and the people that took me in are absolutely in crying need. So what calibrates me is, I go home, I have huge problems. I've nothing compared to what these people have. And I suppose that reminds me that, sure, look, if I lose it all in the morning, I get it all back again. At least I'm not living under a tarpaulin out in the middle of... And remember, at night time it goes down to minus 15 degrees. So that's the time I have. What I'd only ask you guys to do, during the presentation, I called concern and I asked them how things were going over there. And they said pretty bad. And I asked them how the fundraising was going. They said average at best. So, I'm not here to spin anything. I'm just suggesting that we give a little bit of thought to this. And certainly if you want to come to me, or certainly after that, these people do need help. It's been a sad week no more with the tragedies in the Irish tragedies, but it's also an incredibly sad... These people sometimes are forgotten. So I guess that's it. I have a little video. There's the concern thing. I just stuck that in at the end. It was a wonderful moment of my life. It's one of the things I look back on, and EO is about 3 things: your business, your family and friends, and then your third thing is the personal and you. On the you side of it, that was the one that I put the stake in the ground that defined me maybe as a little bit as a person. It wasn't Everest, but it was my kind of Everest. So that's it.